Dear friends, this story is one of my all-time favorites. Nonetheless, it gives me immense pleasure every time I revisit and retell this story, so let's get started. Alex was engrossed in analyzing the new test data, a tedious task that was at the heart of what his team had been doing on the test car for the past month. Curiosity drove him to pick up his cell phone and check the notifications. He clicked on the text message and a message appeared on the screen. At first he was confused as to who would send him such a picture, but he had a private picture on his phone. He read the message and took a closer look at it. You still have time, Bradley, 6 p.m. He reread the message again, thought about it for a moment, and smiled weakly. He was about to delete the message when he took another look at the photo and his heart almost stopped beating. A detail in the photo struck him, a mole on the left leg of the girl in the photo, a small mole that belonged to Candy, his wife. Again his eyes widened in disbelief, looking for anything that might disprove what his eyes had seen, but the closer he looked the more convinced he became that it was his wife, and as he reread the note he realized it referred to Bradley's bar, a local bar neither he nor Candy were familiar with, located in a neighboring town. But why would Candy be there at 6 p.m.? Today was the day the entire team would fly into Boston for final preparations, and as one of the main characters, Candy would have a full rehearsal on Sunday. Candy's flight would land in Boston at 4:30 p.m. He hesitated to call her, but opted to reply to the text message first, and his response wasn't particularly creative. Who are you and how did you get this picture? He casually texted Candy, how was the flight? I'm going out for a bite to eat, call me when you can. His goal was to keep a relaxed demeanor while trying to gather more information. He quickly checked his phone only to find a reply from the mysterious sender, I'll be there, but I'm sure you'll find someone more interesting than me there. Minutes away by car, and it was now 5:40. He calculated that he would arrive shortly after 6 p.m. He was not sure if he would be able to make it, but he was sure he would be able to make it. Considering the importance of time, he opted to go straight to Bradley's house, hoping to arrive on time, regardless of the sender's implication that he would find something interesting on the way. His cell phone rang again, this time with a message from Candy, who was having a crazy time with the team, calling you before bed, love you. As he pulled into the 612 parking lot, his heart was beating wildly because the sender hadn't provided any clues about the person he was supposed to meet, which made him think that person must know him and would reach out to him. The fact that the sender seemed to know information he didn't made him feel like he was walking into a trap and there was no other way to uncover the truth. The picture had turned his insides upside down. He trusted her completely and their life together was perfect, or at least he thought it was. Upon entering the tavern, Alex's eyes adjusted to the dim lighting, but he wasn't familiar with the place. He paused for a moment at the entrance and surveyed his surroundings, a spacious dining area in front of him and a bar to his left. Alex glanced back towards the dining area. His attention was caught by a man who had just taken his drink order and was now walking across the room towards a table filled with merry men. Alex got up from his seat and walked towards the table where Candy was. Alex let go and was about to punch him with his right hand when he found the man doubled over and fell to the floor in a disheveled state of undress. Alex recognized him and let out a stern command. Don't get up, Ben. I'm serious, Ben. I'm serious, Ben. I'm serious. Alex glanced back at Katie and noticed the sudden silence at the table. He recognized familiar faces in the group. They were all part of Katie's team. I'm going home, and if there's any hope of salvaging our marriage, you're coming with me now, he said. His gaze locked on Candy. She nodded and started to get up, but he held up his hand, signaling Forrestford, give me a moment before you come with me. Does Zach believe you're in Boston too? Does Vicky believe Maria is in Boston too? Their silence said it all. They couldn't meet his eyes or answer his tentative inquiries. But he finally decided to give up, as he didn't know what to say and felt betrayed by their obvious deception, so he opted to send them a short text message subtly suggesting that he had just heard from Candy that the group's travel plans seemed to have changed and that it might be worth giving her a call for an update. About 20 minutes later, the sound of the garage door opening heralded Candy's return home. Alex was still sitting in the living room awaiting her arrival. She was still wearing her little black dress when she came in, but now without shoes or jewelry. I'm not interested in lengthy explanations because we all understand why questions often don't have clear answers. Am I known as your cuckold among my coworkers and friends? No, Alex, that's not the case at all. Candy interjected that the team's travel plans had been disrupted. Ben suggested we take a day off in town before resuming our work. Candy admitted it, but you chose to lie to me. He asserted that you seem to be very close to Ben. Is there anything you'd like to disclose about the relationship between the star engineer and the marvelous project manager? His eyes widened in disbelief at her loyalty. I don't give a damn about your friend. If he hadn't tripped over himself, I might have rearranged his nose. I've spent a night in jail before, it's no big deal to me, and it could make for interesting testimony, he added, his tone tinged with sarcasm. Do you love him? Candy was silent for a moment, collecting her thoughts. The weight of silence hung heavy in the air as Alex's thoughts raced. He's not my friend, there's nothing between us. Yes, I should have informed you of the change in travel plans, but it didn't seem to matter whether I was in town or in Boston. Your behavior makes no sense. He was just there to get a drink and you embarrassed me in front of the team. The look on her face showed that she recognized this. She knew she couldn't deny it, and she began to speak again, her tone devoid of the bluster she had before. Alex, our team. She hesitated to find the right words. We have a small team that meets regularly. Everyone is at Bradley's house. We do most of the work on the proposal, and you know how much time I spend preparing our proposals. It was some time after Ben took over as project manager that we worked closely together. I was attracted to him and things just went from there. Candy admitted it, but he firmly interjected, mating doesn't just happen, clothes don't just come off, there are decisions we are all well aware of, so please don't insult my intelligence. He mumbled an answer to one of his own questions around the time Ben joined the team. Right. She nodded her head to confirm the team, and he began again, pausing to find the right words, y'all, and he let the sentence trail off, letting the implication hang in the air. He asked pointedly, now you're being rude, and it's not just that, I feel a deeper connection to Ben and the team than I ever have before. Al can't shake the feeling that this conversation is headed for a tumultuous ending, and unfortunately, there may be some changes to your team as Alex reveals what you've done. We need to focus on ourselves. Candy, you have to understand that I can't stay silent and be complicit. I care about Vicky and Maria, and frankly I'm more attracted to them right now than I am to Leona and Zach. I can live with my decision. Alex, we have the most productive team ever. She's practically screaming, and I've been in the black with you, sir, only because we have a team planning meeting on Wednesday, and I'm never one to say no. You came to me when you needed to, so I slept with my team a little earlier, and you never knew about that picture you showed me. And you want to know what? She's laughing at me. If you don't know about this, then it never happened. I froze in place as I listened, not realizing the depth of my ignorance. So now just because you realize it, just because your fragile ego has been hurt, you're willing to throw away everything I and my team have achieved. With every word, her anger escalated, her rage was infectious, and Alex felt his heart skip a beat as Candy passionately defended her team's questionable dynamic, fueling his own growing resentment. But that thought was quickly extinguished in the bloody carnage. He didn't need to hear any more, he didn't want to hear any more, but Candy insisted, no, we're not going to let you off the hook so easily. You're going to have to text Vicky and Maria and tell them that you got my message, that we're stuck in Atlanta, but that arrangements have been made for the morning. She shouted, millions of people are at stake in this deal, your displeasure is nothing, send the text and then we'll talk about what to do next, Alex retorted, his own voice rising in anger. You're going to leave now, you and your twisted team, and your ringleader Ben, carry on as you want, we're done, I'm contacting my lawyers this week to get this done. I'll contact my lawyers this week and get it over with, it's a straight 50-50 split, you keep your pension, I'll keep mine, Alex declared. But you're leaving, you've got reservations in the city, go to Boston, get another win for you and your team. Alex, please send those text messages, Candy pleaded, her voice was softer, more pleading. If we lose Lionel before the launch or Zach, the company loses millions, and we could miss out on tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars in commissions and bonuses. Imagine all the places we could travel together with this money, just you and I. Forget all this, take me back, please Alex. Don't let some insignificant fling ruin our future. Before Alex could finish, he was punched in the back, he was knocked to the ground, he was kneed in the back, the wind was knocked out of him. Don't hurt him too badly, Candy instructed, so the verdict is still out on breaking my nose. Ben mockingly leaned down and got in Alex's face. He was pinned to the ground. Candy must have had a sender, Alex thought in pain. Now I know who she's playing for. Let's do it, Ben sneered as he grabbed his cell phone and sent those texts for him. We don't have time to mess around here. Someone pulled him up off the ground, but apparently only one person was responsible for this. Alex purposely pretended to be injured, forcing his abductors to exert a great deal of effort to lift him up, which provided him with vital information. When Alex regained his breath after being hit, he concentrated on regaining his composure and strategizing his next move. Unlike Ben and his savvy sales team, Alex's team worked side by side with the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment at Fort Campbell. They earned respect by working closely with the aircrews during test missions. If these guys showed up, it usually meant someone was in trouble, and not the kind of trouble that just walked away. They take pride in knowing that their modifications played a vital role in the success of the mission and the safe return of everyone involved. One of the most respected figures on the 160th crew is Ms. G.T. Terry Baker, a surgical attending. During a mission in Colombia, SGT, Baker instructed a young lieutenant to stay close to him during an ambush, and when the lieutenant was wounded in the firefight, the medic declared him dead, but Sergeant Baker refused to accept this and ensured the lieutenant's safe evacuation. The sergeant seemed to read the medic's mind. "I'll do the same for you," Zach assured the medic. "If I need you, you'll stay close to me." The medic told the doctor that the lieutenant had died from his wounds. The doctor nodded his understanding and pulled a penlight from his pocket. The medic watches in amazement as the supposedly dead lieutenant's pupils constrict under the harsh beam of the penlight. He took a special interest in Alex and his team, and between missions, the NCO showed his appreciation by teaching basic but effective sign language, which he did by the Sergeant-at-Arms expresses his gratitude by teaching basic but effective sign language, and he takes a special interest in Alex and his team, and between missions, the sergeant yes, I know that the biggest threat you may encounter is a copier jam or a paper cut, but if you continue in this job, you may find yourselves going to some colorful places, Sergeant Baker explained to the group, and if you happen to run into the locals, you'll have something useful to fall back on. He remembered the fighting techniques that Sergeant Baker had taught him. In some cases you may feel helpless and have to put up with the beatings that the sergeant had suggested, but remember that even if you are passive you can still fight back, you just have to outsmart your attacker. "Give me the phone." Alex. Ben looked him straight in the eye and said, "Now you know I slept with your wife, Alex. I've slept with your wife along with all the guys on the team, probably more times than you've ever slept with her. Forget about the whole macho thing, Alex, you're nothing but a cowardly nerd. Do as we tell you to do, and maybe when the team doesn't use your wife anymore, you'll be able to get your candy back." He said, "Ah, there it is." Alex quickly reached for the phone with his right hand, his right heel kicking back, hitting his captor's calf, then dragging it downward until it hit his toes and his Gucci loafers. The sound of bone breaking echoed in his ears as blood gushed from Ben's nose, knocking him to the ground. Turning to face his opponent, Alex found Zach lying on the ground, whimpering and clutching his injured leg. Alex turned his attention to Ben lying on the floor, observing him covering his injured face with both hands, struggling to his knees, moving closer to him and whispering in his ear, "Looks like you took a blow to the nose, Ben. I just didn't feel like taking the blame for the team." I rendered Ben unconscious before delivering the final blow to his sanctum, his adrenaline spiking and his breath coming in short gasps. Alex scanned the living room, looking for Candy. He quickly dropped to one knee and turned to face the new threat, only to find Candy wielding a cast-iron skillet. Her swing missed its target and only delivered a blow to Alex, who stood up and roughly snatched the skillet from her hands. Alex rubbed the back of his head with his left hand as he watched Katie, stunned by how quickly she switched from one demeanor to another. He couldn't help but think of Aliens and John Carpenter. The shape of that thing changed with each new challenge. A wise smile swept across the corners of his mouth, and because of that comparison he mistook Katie for agreeing with his smile, so he moved towards Katie and embraced Alex. The Katie reacted quickly as he dropped his left arm from around his neck and blocked her path. Alex observed Candy's teary eyes, impaired vision, and blood-covered face, and asked, "Why you hit me?" He was sure he had enough reasons to justify his actions. He remembered Sergeant Alex's advice, "Make up your mind in the room. When you can act, Don't move until it's right, but once you've done it, put everything into it and don't stop until no one moves but you." Zach whimpered in the corner as Candy struggled to stop the blood that was flowing from her nose. He was the only one in movement. "You saved the other top," he thought. "It doesn't look like your lover boy and Mr. Zach will be pitching in any condition Monday," he thought. "It doesn't look like your little lover boy and Mr. Zach will be pitching in any condition Monday. It's a bummer to miss out on all those prizes and millions of dollars." Alex said, "Oh, I wonder what Nate will say when he finds out," and although he was going to call the mine, he hesitated, knowing that getting the police involved would limit his chances of asking for Candy. As the adrenaline dwindled, Alex suddenly felt physically exhausted and collapsed heavily into the seat across from Candy. Where had his wife gone? The woman sitting across from him was not the same as the one he searched for every day. "Ben knew. He'd told me that your black and white ethics and Boy Scout views would hold me back if I listened. He said that if I wanted to succeed I had to get out from under your control and be my own woman." Alex asked as if you knew the half of it. She spat out her tongue. "Oh, I try to be a good girl engineer and do all those things you said would enhance my career. You want to know what really works?" Alex stayed silent. His cell phone was still recording. "Well, I'll tell you, my dear husband, all those things you told me don't work. I work my ass off to make sure all my assignments on time and budgeted well, and all that only got me a few advert girls. It wasn't until Leona pulled me aside that I realized what women really need to do. She said at a Christmas party the year after I joined comm, I serviced Nate for the first time and never looked back." "Wait, you slept with the boss too?" Nate Vandal Alex asked incredulously. "Yes." Alex Nate Ben Zach, you think you've got it all figured out? "We told Nate where we were going when we got here, and now he's getting the rest of the team together, and they're going to make a cover story out of our absence, and they're going to have to do the publicity without us. But I think all the extra effort we're putting in with their purchasing manager is going to pay off." She laughed and said it was so easy with the men at the bidders conference that we had to get more creative with Molly, the token woman on the selection committee. "Yeah, we had a selection committee, so why bother? I mean, if this is all going so well, why the need for a power weapon?" Alex asked me. "It was Ben's idea, that idiot. I told him to take it easy, I'll come home and make you happy, but he had to go to Alpha, and look where it got us now. I can't be the face of the winning team and have to impress Nate. Like I said, it's fixable, but it's going to be my downfall. You're not going to buy me on the cheap." He said. "Maybe it wasn't the candy, but I'll still be able to make the plane," he said. He remembered Ben seems to have a good head on his shoulders. He guessed Candy must have a transmitter with her. "Nate, are you listening? I'm going to call the police. I'm sure there are some felonies involved here, and we haven't even begun to go on the rabbi's trail yet. This is a federal contract, right, Candy?" Alex asked rhetorically. "Yeah, the feds are pretty dismissive of your talk of doubling down. I'm sure you have good lawyers, but maybe there's something else to do." "Nate," she asked into the phone. "Sure, I'll put you on speakerphone." "Nate, first of all, let me apologize. Ben's actions were a serious lapse in judgment. These are very unfortunate allegations. The lawyers are going to get rich, but no one really wants to rock the boat. We may pay a fine. Ben and Zach will get some community service, but eventually you'll get divorced and be half as poor as you are now," said Lee. "You said call the police, assuming we can come to an agreement. They told me they disappeared after watching it. Maybe that'll restore some goodwill to Candy." Candy opened the snapshot and turned the phone towards Alex. He saw the words Grand Cayman Bank and a number, a very large number. "When can I deposit it?" Alex asked. "It's already deposited, Alex. You have an email that it has the account number on it. This is a very bad day for you, Alex. This could be a very difficult decision for you to make." I can't deny that Candy is a very desirable woman. Nevertheless, one can't take one's feelings to the bank, can one? I think we all know that Candy will file for divorce. She will ask for her personal property and her pension." He pondered for a moment before replying. On the one hand, he could stand on principle and expose the whole messy sort of thing and let the chips fall where they may. On the other hand, he could simply walk away, and Nate had just given him 5 million reasons to do so. Nate replied. "Great," Alex said. "You better load a couple of guys into a limo and have them come here and pick up your team." We agreed. Then Nate asked who Candy was. Alex replied accurately. Nate agreed. "Are we done yet?" Nate asked. By Nate, Alex said. End the call. Alex put away his cell phone, closed the recording app, and slipped away. "I know you'll agree, Alex, and when this is over, we'll still be friends with benefits." Her eyes turned black and dried blood ran from her nose all the way down to her chin. Alex found the scene a little comical and allowed himself a smile once again. Candy mistook his agreement and came over to him for a kiss. Alex quickly reached out with his right hand to stop her. He hooked his hand around her face and pushed her back until she fell onto the couch with a thud. Alex said, walking towards the door and stopping at Zach's feet. He asked Zach, "Does your foot still hurt?" Zach whimpered and replied, "Yeah, you asshole, my feet still hurt." Without another word, Alex kicked Zach in the crotch, causing him to curl up and groan in pain. Alex reassured him that "I'm not going to hit you," and Ben smiled, but his smile disappeared when Alex's foot touched his balls. After grabbing a burger at a nearby takeout place, he checked into a red-roofed motel near the freeway outside of town and fell asleep as soon as his head hit the pillow, aching despite the numerous run-ins he'd endured. He dragged himself out of bed, ready for some motel coffee, when his cell phone rang, alerting him to a new message, a text message from that number. He immediately opened it and read it. "I'm sorry about yesterday. I can meet you at TGIF at the mall at noon. I'll wave at you from my seat at the bar. I'll be there." Alex replied to the text message, and then poured the warm brown water from the coffee maker into a paper cup. "Yes, I'll be there," he thought as he set up his laptop. With the professor's help, he soon had a brand new bank account in the Cayman Islands. It was his Dame fund. As a safety net against the unexpected, Alex used the passwords to access the secure websites of both banks, and through a series of keystrokes he transferred most of the Chrome into his personal account, leaving him with the remaining $100,000. After completing the transaction, he showered and changed into his After completing the transaction, he showered, changed his clothes, and got ready to head out the door to meet the mysterious texter. Just as he entered TGIF that afternoon, Alex spotted a man waving at him. "I think you sent me a text," he said as he took his seat. "I'm sorry things turned out this way. I don't know if there's any clean way to tell you," the stranger started. "Why don't you start by telling me who you are and your relationship with Candy?" "About 6 months ago I was assigned to Ben's team. About 3 months ago I was talking to a friend about the job and mentioned that I was working for Candy. When he asked for her full name, we found out that we had a mutual friend. He asked me to look after Candy for him. At first everything was great and I was warmly welcomed by the team. But when I asked about her ring, she just laughed and told me you're fine with it. I disagreed and said start freezing. Then after I turned her down, I got all the assignments and nothing but grief for Ben. I guess I'm a decent guy. I quit yesterday and texted you." Our friend Alex asked Terry Baker what would he have answered if I hadn't met Terry. "I owe him a favor, or two, don't I?" Alex agreed. "What are you going to do?" The stranger asked Nate. "He told me everything. I could get the police involved. Yes, Zach and Ben, even Candy would have some legal problems. But with his lawyer it would all be over, like a bump in the road. We made the deal. You may think I sold you out, and maybe you're right, in a way, but the only thing they stole from me was irreplaceable. If I can't make them pay, well, at least I can make them pay, but I think I might find she's not as irreplaceable as I thought. I've already made plans to go on a trip. Tell Terry thanks for everything. I'm not going back to work." "What about you?" Alex finally asked. Terry has always spoken very highly of Baxter's, and now that you're gone they might need another engineer, and I think I'll be able to live with that, and so will Rose." The stranger did. They just nodded to each other and left without a word. On Monday, Alex had just checked in for his flight to Costa Rica, and Tamarindo would be a good place to decompress. He put the envelope in a box and walked into the security line. 9 months later, Alex was sitting in his usual seat in the cafe, and Nicole, lovely as always, brought him his "Seiza, thank you, darling." He wondered who had found him. He hadn't taken any steps to hide himself, but it would take an awful lot of resources to find him in a small town on the Pacific coast of northern Costa Rica. His first thought was that Nate's people had found him, and the envelope had been sitting at his house for 2 days. Travis handed the envelope to Alex, who took a few steps back, he thought, and when Travis cut it open, he handed it back to Alex, who thanked him, and Travis took another sip of his beer and flipped the envelope over, and a couple of pieces of paper fell onto the table, and he picked up the note. He flipped over another piece of paper. It was a copy of a newspaper article with a photo of Ben Thacker and Leonaby walking out of the Chromate building in handcuffs. He smiled. Maybe Nate's lawyer wasn't what he thought he was, he said to himself. It was a habit he'd picked up because his Spanish was weak and English wasn't widely spoken. He liked to listen to conversations in English, even if it was just him talking to himself. As he spoke, he picked up his beer and took a sip before looking out at the deep blue Pacific Ocean. Candy, thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. Please consider bookmarking and subscribing if you enjoyed it, and if you haven't already done so, feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below.